Father, I just killed a woman. I've lied. I've slept with informants. I've taken drugs. I've falsified evidence. I did whatever I had to do to get the bad guys. And then I realized something. That I had become what I most despise.
You have a family.
Yes, Father.
Go to them and leave these things. Try to find a gentle self inside you. Allow this person to come back.
Everything all right? You sounded strange on the phone.
No, I'm not. It's all right. I'm just a little tired.
Well, you've come to the right place to rest.
Well, he certainly tried. It didn't exactly work out for him. But lucky for us, we got a pretty amazing action masterpiece out of this. Seagal's third movie. We're going to talk about Marked for Death. If you haven't seen this movie, it's definitely worth a watch. If you have, it's worth revisiting. So sit back and I'll break it down for you.
In Above the Law, he got tough.
Who's that?
John Hatcher, DEA.
In Hard to Kill, he got even.
This is not the time for you to walk out on me. I've had enough. He thinks he's retired.
He still looks functional to me.
Now, the man with the short fuse is marked for death.
So this is Steven Seagal's third movie, Marked for Death. First one without Warner Brothers. This was actually put out by 20th Century Fox. It happened at number 1 at the US box office with an opening weekend gross of $11,790,047, making it Seagal's third straight film to open at number 1. It remained at number 1 for 3 weekends and earned a little more than $46 million domestically and $58 million worldwide. Now this was clearly a big hit. In fact, when it came out in 1990, this was Fox's second highest grossing R-rated film, just after Die Hard 2. And that movie already had a built-in audience, so it's no surprise that was number 1. Although popular stateside, Steven Seagal was not an international star just yet. This movie only had a $12 million budget to work with, while most action films at the time with big stars cost $40 million to make. Steven Seagal's Hard to Kill was released while they were filming this movie. Because of that success, they added an extra $1 million to the budget for Marked for Death. So the reason I bring this up is, a lot of younger people may not realize how big of a star Steven Seagal was in the 90s. He was huge. In fact, he was so big that Warner Brothers even considered casting him in the 1989 Tim Burton film Batman. There were a lot of people at Warner Brothers who wanted to cast it with an action star. They wanted to cast the part as Batman, as opposed to casting it as Bruce Wayne. Seagal just kind of appeared on the scene, an up-and-coming action hero, so he was one of the names floated around. There's actually a really cool production still from Marked for Death where Seagal looks like Batman crashing through this window here. As far as the story and script goes, there's an interesting history. Steven Seagal lost a labor dispute regarding the film's script. In a case brought before the Writers Guild of America, Seagal sought full credit for the script, claiming that he had rewritten 93% of the original draft. However, the Guild ruled in favor of Michael Graves and Mark Victor, who remain the only credited writers for the movie. Co-writer Michael Graves got the idea for Marked for Death after reading a news story about Jamaican drug gangs taking over American suburbs. Co-writers Michael Gray and Mark Victor met with one of the biggest drug dealers in Jamaica to help lend a little more authenticity to the script. As far as how they arranged this meeting, well, that's anyone's guess. The two co-writers also included voodoo into the script after talking with the LAPD, as they have learned more about the Jamaican gangs while doing ride-alongs with the police. Hollywood had kind of a weird obsession with voodoo at the time, and several movies were produced to feature such themes, such as The Serpent and the Rainbow, Weekend at Bernie's 2, and several episodes of HBO's Tales from the Crypt. To this day, many action fans remember Marked for Death fondly as the one where he fights Jamaicans, or the one with Screwface. Speaking of Screwface, the working title for this film was actually Screwface, so it's no surprise that the character had a very prominent and memorable role. The character was played by Basil Wallace. The actor was born in Jamaica and grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and this was his first movie role. He actually gained 30 pounds for the role because the producers wanted him to look big next to Steven Seagal. The role was initially offered to reggae sensation Ika Mouse, who declined it after reading the script because he didn't like how Jamaicans were portrayed in the film. Which brings up an interesting point. There weren't a lot of films out of Hollywood that featured Jamaicans at the time, but in the same year that Marked for Death came out, we also got the sequel to Predator, which featured the so-called Jamaican Voodoo Posse, a gang of drug lords residing within LA. So, in Marked for Death, you got Jamaicans running the drug trade in Chicago. In Predator 2, you have Jamaicans running the drug trade in Los Angeles. With that said, The producers of Marked for Death put in an interesting credit stating that the posse phenomena is estimated to be a fraction of 1% of the Jamaican population and should not detract from their country or the contributions Jamaicans have made to this country. I would hope that the viewing audience at the time would realize this, but on the other hand, if that's all someone is exposed to in the media, whether it's film, television, or even the actual news, it could help negatively shape the attitudes people have towards certain cultures. Let me know in the comments section, by the way, what you guys think about this. Do you think it was fair for Ika Mouse to turn down the script based on that, or do you think it doesn't really make sense, how people are influenced by watching film and television, etc.? Going back to reggae musicians, there was one prominent one at the time who did play a role in the film, none other than Jimmy Cliff, whom Seagal asked to perform in the movie. Now, there's also a fair bit of the film that does take place in Jamaica. In fact, co-writers Michael Gray and Mark Victor visited Jamaica before they wrote the scenes pertaining to the country.
These are the streets that breed the screw faces of the world. This is the first time I ever got the idea it's not all sunshine and bikinis. I owe you an apology, man, because until today, I thought all Jamaicans were dope dealing dreads.
As far as the action goes, Marked for Death was named one of the most violent movies of 1990 by the National Coalition on TV Violence. According to multiple reports, some graphic scenes were cut down for an R rating. This explains why some of the death scenes in the movie are very weirdly edited and cut. For example, in the theatrical trailer, there's a scene showing Seagal killing one of the Jamaican gang members with a throat chop during the mall fight. But in the actual movie, he just hits him with his leg, and apparently the gang member dies from it. As far as the fights go, Steven Seagal felt that this film has some of the best fight scenes he's ever done, and I agree with him. Going back to the mall fight, this is one of my favorite scenes in the film. This is a great action piece. The culmination of his spectacular car chase is just concluded, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in this video, but this leads into this mall fight.
Go ahead, kill her. I don't know her. I don't care about her.
I got you where I want to know. You're just like a dog without a teeth.
You want to kill her, kill her. I don't mind if you kill her, you know, because I don't know her at all.
What I really love about this scene is just the overall timing. It doesn't look overly choreographed. The way he catches this, the actual knife disarm right here, it's just perfectly timed. It just looks authentic, unlike a lot of martial arts films. Now, when they first storm the mall, it's really cool to see all the chaos, all the patrons inside the mall scrambling. You don't get that in a lot of action films. This actually looks like it's really taking place here. All the gunplay is really well done. It's just another great action sequence in this film. It's really cool to see Steven Seagal here run out of ammo. He doesn't have time to reload, he just tosses the gun aside, grabs a new one. Even Jean-Claude Van Damme's a fan of Seagal's marksmanship.
Yeah, good charisma, he's got something special on the screen.
So one common theme you'll see in a lot of Steven Seagal movies, especially a lot of his earlier ones, is broken glass. And I talked about that in some of my earlier videos from Above the Law and Hard to Kill. Here's a quick recap. Here in Hard to Kill, for example, you'll see these guys thrown through shelves of bottles in a liquor store. You'll see this guy's head through a Chinese cabinet. And then these guys kick through the windows of a hotel lobby. If there's one thing that all this broken glass has in common, it's pretty damn entertaining.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So as far as broken glass goes, Marked for Death does not disappoint. This display case, for example, is put to very good use by Seagal. Multiple times, mind you. And Steven Seagal himself partakes in the festivities with his head bashed through this glass. Let me know in the comments section, by the way, if you'd like to see Steven Seagal finally get the glass treatment himself. Moving along, I've alluded to a spectacular car chase in the film, and Steven Seagal drives a 1973 Mustang Sports Roof. It's an awesome car. Fortunately, this is not one of the cars in the Great Car Chase. The actual car chase takes place between this Dodge Ram Charger and BMW. After a minor verbal exchange, they're quickly off to the races.
What's happening, brother?
Harry. You want some blow?
Yeah, I want some blow. Put your hands where I can see them or I'm gonna blow your head off.
Cool now. Keep a cool head, man. See them here?
Right there, right there.
Hatch!
Now, when people talk about car chases in movies, a lot of people bring up the French Connection, and the French Connection was actually an inspiration for this film. Now, one thing you'll notice both films have in common, it's pretty gritty, pretty realistic, busy city street, crashing through garbage cans. It's just got a real authentic feel to it. Now, they actually shot the car chase on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, and that was actually shut off on multiple Sundays in order to shoot the road chase. One of the best parts of this car chase, by the way, is just the amount of air they get on that jump, both the BMW as well as that Dodge. Some pretty amazing suspension there. Going back to the beginning of the video, remember, Steven Seagal wanted to live a quiet life. He wanted to be a pacifist. He was sick of the violence. Keith David's character has been goading him along into taking down these drug lords for a long time, and it wasn't until Steven Seagal's niece got injured in a drive-by shooting where he finally decided to take part. It was a call to action. In fact, after he leaves the hospital room with his niece, there's a certain look that he gives Keith David, and you know it's gonna go down. This actually leads us into one of the greatest one-liners in Seagal history.
One thought he was invincible. The other thought he could fly. They were both wrong.
So anyway, that's Marked for Death. Hopefully I gave you guys a little more insight, a little more appreciation for the film. Let me know in the comments section, by the way, where this ranks as far as, is this your favorite Seagal movie? Is this top 3, top 5, top 10, and why? Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to be covering more Steven Seagal movies, Van Damme movies, etc. And hope to see you guys next time.
It's my silent partner. A whisper in the ear from this girl goes a long way, you know what I'm saying?